I've been cleaning out my office lately, and I recently came across a stack of New Yorker magazines, and in one of them, from 2009, there was a profile of the late novelist David Foster Wallace. In the profile, it quotes a friend of his, a fellow novelist named Mark Costello, who was a classmate of his. And during their junior year, Costello and Wallace were sitting around talking about magical realism. I think they cite 100 Years of Solitude or something like that. Anyway, this guy walks through the room and he's like, "Oh, you like that? You should try Pynchon." And then he throws a copy of Lot 49, The Crying of Lot 49, across the room to David Foster Wallace. And Costello describes this moment similar to the way Bob Dylan discovered Woody Guthrie. And this concept of the people that throw books really intrigued me, this kind of unsung hero. There are people in our careers, in our lives, that introduce us to different concepts, that introduce us to new opportunities for growth as people and as artists. And I was just thinking about how hard it is to keep track of who throws books to us when we catch them. And I'm thinking about how hard it is to keep track of who we throw books to. A couple of years ago, my friend Jeff introduced me to a woman that lives in Austin, Texas named Chris. Chris is a musician and a composer and an actress. And since we were introduced, we have done multiple projects together. And I always remember that the person that introduced me to Chris to begin with was my friend Jeff. Jeff was a book thrower. When I was in college, my very first screenwriting class, I had a professor named Walker, and Professor Walker introduced me to Joseph Campbell. He did an introduction just in one of the classes, and Joseph Campbell has become very important in my playwriting career. His hero's myth, his monomyth and stuff. In fact, if you write stories at all or are engaged in any kind of narrative art form, you're going to eventually find out about Joseph Campbell. I just happened to find out about Joseph Campbell from my professor in my screenwriting class. I cite him with throwing that book. I'm working with a company right now in Denton, Texas called Sundown. And I thought to myself as I was sitting down to make this video, who introduced me to Sundown to begin with? And when I think about it, I think I can trace it back to my friend Chris. Chris, a different Chris than the one that lives in Austin. This is a guy. This guy, Chris, was running a theater blog a couple of years ago, and he's the one that said, "Hey, you should go check out these guys that are doing work up in Denton." And now I'm actually co-producing a show with them and directing something that I've written for Sundown. So the connections are real. The interactions we have when we grow as an artist, they're real, and they're usually because of somebody throwing a book across the room to us, just like somebody threw Lot 49 across the room to David Foster Wallace. Because it's so hard to keep track of who threw us a particular book, who made that particular opportunity happen, because the more opportunities you stack up in your career, the harder it is to figure out who did what for you. And because, honestly, out of all the books I've thrown for other people, very few of them ever acknowledge the fact that I've done them a favor, that I've helped them make a connection. And that's okay. That's the way it should be. In fact, the way it should be is that we should continue to throw and catch books for each other. If you'll keep the metaphor going, we should introduce opportunities to our colleagues, to our network, to make connections. And if we do this, we can expect connections and opportunities to come our way as well. You see what I'm saying? It's an open loop. Now, there's a running joke with a friend of mine that I have to discover something. For instance, my friend Jeff, another friend of mine named Jeff, introduced me to Improv Everywhere, a group that operates out of New York, and they do kind of these happenings, site-specific kind of theater stuff. Anyway, he sent me an email a long time ago about this group. And then a couple of months later, I stumbled on the group by myself. And it seemed vaguely familiar, and then I read up on it. And then we were having beers after that. This guy, Jeff, from this part of the story, who introduced me. I have a lot of friends named Jeff. Anyway, I was telling him about Improv Everywhere, and he's like, "Yeah, I told you about that." And in the back of my mind, I vaguely remembered that he did. He, in essence, was a book thrower, but I couldn't remember that he was because I thought that I had discovered it on my own. Oftentimes, we're given foreshadowing. Something is telling us before we're ready to accept it about something, and then we ultimately discover it on our own. I'm definitely one of those people that has to discover stuff on my own. I have gratitude for the people that have thrown books to me in my life, especially in my career as a theater artist. People that have introduced me to connections and opportunities and moments of growth and expansion. I want to say thank you to everybody that's helped me out this far, and I want you to know I'll keep doing my best to keep spreading the mirth. I'll keep throwing books myself to the people around me and helping everyone grow so that the tide raises all boats. Be a book thrower. Be a book catcher. Thanks.